Chapter 321 Poisoned. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Arteta had observed Max's routine for 20 days now, and he was extremely disappointed in the boy. Max did not train daily with the soldiers, he rarely exercised his body, never bothered with leveling up or practicing his moveset. The only thing he seemed to do was paperwork and staying inside his office all day, as Arteta began to seriously doubt if such a boy could ever be the hero of the frontline battlefield. Arteta had seen many exceptional men throughout his life, and while all those men had some unique quality, they were all extremely disciplined and dedicated towards perfecting their craft. They trained like a madman day and night to be at the heights they aimed to achieve, and even when they did achieve those heights they continued to train harder for even higher peaks. However, Max did none of that, which casted clouds of doubt in Arteta's mind about the legitimacy of his status as a hero. Kids these days, they are not tough like us. I grew up with real men who worked till their back gave out. These children stop working when the first drop of sweat appears on their forehead. Spat. Shame what the vampire clan has come to, Arteta said as he began mixing the poison-laced drink he planned on giving Max later on. Arteta had chosen to kill Max by poisoning because the man hardly ever left his office, and whenever he did leave it, he was usually accompanied by his close friends and guarded by Titus clan soldiers. Under such circumstances, it was difficult for Arteta to catch him alone, which is why he decided to kill him using a colorless and odorless poison, by mixing it with the blood supplies he drank daily. Through his master assassin skills, Arteta had already figured out a way to mix the poisoned bottle of blood amongst the supplies bound for Max's room. Through daily monitoring, he knew exactly the shelf where Max's supplies were stored, and when nobody was around, he snuck into the ice storage facility and poisoned Max's drink for the day before sneakily going out. All Arteta had to do now was to wait for Max to drink the blood and die in his office alone as pandemonium spread throughout the rebel camp at the death of their leader. Meanwhile, at the Kingsman clan territory, brother, these generals are using you. If you sign on these documents you will effectively give the army a free reign over the royal treasury. We can't have them loot everything that father left for us in the name of national security, Keen Kingsman said as he addressed his elder brother Roy. We have to Keen, we have to, do you not see it? Since day one that bitch Asiva and the Hound have been after us. Whether it was school, or back in our territory. We have been humiliated by them time and time again, and even lost one of our balls to them, Roy said as he adjusted his pants, feeling uncomfortable recalling that uncomfortable sensation. Father built this wealth for both of us, and I won't have it squandered to buy anti-battleship weapons. If the army wants to purchase something, they can respectfully send you the bill, and after reviewing it you can approve it. Giving them a free reign of the treasury is plain stupid, Keen said as he tried to talk some much-needed sense into his brother. Don't argue with me on this, brother. I'm the Lord now, and my decision is final. I've lost everything to those bastards, my pride, my ball, my father. I won't lose my territory to them too. These are trying times and we need to prepare for war. We will refill our coffers when we win it, but if we lose all this wealth our father has built will be nothing but free loot for the enemies, Roy said as he reminded his brother that he was the Lord now and his word was law. Keen wanted to argue, but his brother hastily signed the documents and gave the army the approval to have a free reign over the royal treasury. Roy had effectively opened his biggest asset and generational wealth to greedy generals and warmongers. It was a decision that was going to come biting him in the ass in the future. Meanwhile Max was working in his office trying to figure out if capturing the 4 planets was feasible, when he heard knock on his door as his meal arrived. Max put his work aside as he thanked the delivery boy for his iced vampire blood, which was delivered to him at exactly 10 degrees Celsius, the temperature he felt perfect to drink. Every glass of vampire blood costed Max about 20 gold coins, however, he did not mind this expense at all as the freshness it brought him was worth every penny. Max smelled his drink and let the rich aroma of the blood wasp into his nostrils as he bared his fangs and hissed. Max could not smell the poison at all and could only smell the fresh blood as he did not think much before drinking it. For the first few gulps Max felt nothing, however, when he stopped for a second to breathe some air Max started to feel a burning sensation in his throat. Confused, Max took another small sip of the blood as although it tasted well, it has an acidity to it that burnt Max's tongue. Max immediately spat the blood out, before poking fingers down his own throat to forcefully make himself vomit the drink he had already drunk. Max's stomach convoluted violently as he vomited the blood he had drunk out as he got a large amount of the poison dose out of his body alongside the vomit, but even though he was quick to react he felt his head starting to become dizzy as his vision started to blur. Max felt like he was spinning although he was sprawled on the floor not moving at all, as his head hurt like hell. He started to crawl towards the door, trying to reach it and push it open before crying for help, however he felt his muscles betray him as they stopped responding to his neural commands. Fuck, I'm poisoned by some strong shit, Max thought as black spots started to appear in his vision. Chapter 322 Purpose. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Max was poisoned and was losing control over key muscles fast, his vision was blurring and his breathing had become laborious, the poison seemed to affect his neurological system. Stay calm kid, control the flow of blood within your own body, completely stop the flow of blood to the linings of your stomach and speed up the blood flow process throughout the rest of your body. Your kidneys are very potent. With enough blood circulation and repeated cycles they will clear out whatever little poison you have ingested, Drax said in a calm voice as he instructed Max about the best course of action. Max immediately began doing as Drax instructed him to. He stopped the flow of blood to his stomach lining, making sure that any more of the remnant poison in his stomach did not enter his bloodstream, while he began quickly circulating his natural blood throughout his body. The moment Max willed both his hearts to work in overdrive, the poison already induced in his bloodstream quickly started reaching all parts of his body, as his vision completely blacked out and his thoughts and focus started to become hazy. For Max, his head ached so much he felt like putting a bullet through it was the best way to get immediate relief. However, through grit and will he persisted in his endeavor of circulating blood throughout his body. Don't give up now boy, you ain't ever gonna become the Vampire King if you're dead. If your dreams are worth it for you then fight, Drax said as he encouraged Max to keep circulating blood throughout his body. However, the old AI could notice that Max was losing pace fast. Although in Max's mind, he was doing his best to circulate blood, his heart rate had slowed down a lot. His blood manipulation was the only thing keeping his blood flowing in his body as his normal human heart had already failed and his draconic heart was barely beating. The poison was at its maximum effect, and it could only grow weaker from now. However, this was the critical moment for Max where if he stopped his blood manipulation for even a second he would die. Push boy, keep pushing, you will never see your friends' faces again if you die, Drax said as he tried to use emotional baggage to see if it could push Max over the line, but it also failed. Max was constantly losing blood pressure, as his skill was slowing down. At this rate his brain would go into coma and his blood manipulation skill would be forcefully deactivated and Max would die. Drax panicked now, although the old Jedi tried his best to remain calm and provide reassurance to Max as best as he could. Panic seeped into his voice at this moment as he said, "Don't die on me boy, you still have to avenge Lord Egni for me, don't you dare die on me." Drax's voice was now trembling, he was practically shouting inside Max's head to keep him focused and alive. However, Max felt like he was having his life's worst migraine in every cell of his being as trying even slightly to defy his fate and maintain consciousness only worsened his pain exponentially. "You have already died once boy, are you willing to die again?" Drax finally said as something inside Max snapped at this statement. BDNVL.M Max vividly remembered the scene of his first death, the brutal murder at the hands of the werewolves who toyed with his body before sending him to the afterlife. Even then, his body was mangled, his eyes were gouged out and he was in unbelievable pain, but back then he only had this one burning desire to cling on to life, one desire to save his nephew and niece and one desire to prove his worth. In his final moments he had begged for a second chance, and by some incredible miracle he had received it, and since that day he had never looked back. He had grown stronger than he ever thought would be possible, he had overcome his birth defect and controlled mana. He had trained under the coward Kremeth and became the chosen of Angakok. He was the rising star of the vampire clan and had strong ambitions to become a lord. He could not stop here, could not let himself fail at this juncture, knowing that his destiny was to become a monarch and sit on the throne on Ixtal. He could not let his heart stop now, because if he did it would spell the end of the journey for him. It would mean that his second chance was a failure again, and that despite coming this far, it was all for naught. No. If I die, it will be a death like my brothers, the entire universe will tremble as the mightiest gods scramble to kill me. I refuse to die in this small office, I refuse to die before I'm king. Max shouted in his mind as a rush of adrenaline pumped up his heartbeat. Max pushed past his pain barrier and pushed his blood manipulation skill to the limit, forcing his blood to pass through his kidney filters as with every circulation, more and more of the poison was filtered out of his system. Max had no idea about the sense of time or pain anymore as he just kept pushing and pushing like a madman, until several hours later his vision started to eventually return. Slowly, the black spots that had covered his eyes were clearing as the world around him seemed to slow its fast spinning down. Max could feel the expansion and contraction of his lungs as he felt the fresh breath of air touch his burning throat. I'm alive. Max thought as he continued cycling blood throughout his body and slowly gathered his thoughts. Although he had just been through a near-death experience, his eyes looked sharper than ever as a result of his sufferings, because it reminded him of his purpose in this life. /////A/N. Bonus chapter for hitting the PS target. Good job everyone. /////. Chapter 323 Oblivious. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Asiva entered Max's office not suspecting anything, but she was shocked when she entered the room and found putrid blood alongside very small pieces of food sprawled all over the floor. The stench of the blood was horrible, it smelled like rotten eggs mixed with elf liver. Asiva panicked as she glanced at Max, who was drenched in sweat from head to toe, sweating profusely as if he had just fought the most intense battle of his life. Asiva wanted to say, "Are you okay?" However, the moment she stared into Max's eyes she lost her courage to utter a single word. Max was not wearing his mask, his full facial expressions were on display as Asiva recognized the look of madness in his eyes from the first time she had seen it when his blood satiety had dropped below 60% while fighting in the university woods. It was a terrifying look, one that sent shivers down the spine of even a warrior like Asiva who knew Max would never in a million years harm her in any way. Something about those eyes was just so volatile, as if it was on the verge of doing something crazy, with full conviction that Asiva could not gather the courage to ask Max a question. Max looked pale, his scaly draconic skin looked like it had lost 2.3 shades of color as he did not look healthy at all. However, the aura he gave off was completely different. Max was angry, not the normal sort of angry, but seething angry as he seemed to be ready to butcher anyone standing in his path. "There's an assassin amongst us, there was poison in my blood," Max said slowly with a chilly edge in his voice. "No way," Asiva said, gasping as she finally realized what had transpired in the room. "The Titus clan soldiers are all vetted and sent by Vega, there is a very low probability that the assassin is mixed amongst them. Which leaves with the Paredes troops, one or more of them is definitely an imposter and we need to sniff them out immediately. So listen carefully Asiva, for you will follow my instructions precisely now. Walk out of the room calmly, like nothing happened, and start questioning the entry guards if anything peculiar had happened in the last 30 days during immigration. We have a physical copy of all the immigration forms, where they have signed a system contract stating they cannot harm their superiors. Shift through the stack of contracts and silently tally them against the members. In doing so you will find out someone who is not on the list but living amongst us. I will deal with the rest, you do this for me, understand?" Max said authoritatively as Asiva nodded. Asiva pursed her lips and took a deep breath. Someone had just attempted to take the life of the one she loved and by the looks of it had almost succeeded. She had lost everyone in life, all she had now were her friends and Max, she could not afford to lose him too, no. The thought itself repulsed her to no end, she was never going to let anyone get away with harming her boyfriend. With unmatched fury, Asiva walked out of Max's office pretending like nothing had happened as she went straight to the immigration office to do as Max had instructed her. Whoever the culprit for this was, Asiva swore to find him out within the next 24 hours. While Max had told her that he would handle the matter himself once she found out who it was, Asiva was not sure she was ready to let Max handle the matter himself. Someone had attempted to kill her love, and she was definitely not going to take it standing down. Meanwhile Arteta, a deep frown appeared on Arteta's face when he looked at Asiva walk out of Max's office without having a concerned expression on her face. He assumed that the moment she would enter the office, and see the dead body of Max she would scream and howl, her shrieks shaking the camp to its core. However, she went inside the cabin and walked out without a single disturbed scream. It was like the man was not dead at all. It's not possible that he took a sip of the drink and is still alive. That drink was mixed with the poison of the Norodriantic spider. One drop of that poison is enough to kill a giant in under 2 minutes. I used a vial full of it to kill a vampire. Arteta thought as he dismissed the idea of Max having survived the assassination attempt. Arteta clicked his tongue and believed that Max was just a lucky bastard who had survived by some dumb luck and had not drunk his daily drink. While not common, it still happened in his line of work where an intended target, sure to die from a carefully planned assassination attempt, somehow survived by some sheer dumb luck. Arteta himself had seen 3 such cases throughout his long assassin career and felt like today was the 4th one. Maybe he spilled it, or maybe he did not feel like drinking it today because of work, and by the time he wanted to drink it, it might not be at his desirable temperature. Arteta thought as he reasoned with himself that one of these might be the true reason why he failed today. Either way, the lucky bastard had survived and Arteta had to wait to try again some other day. What Arteta did not know and did not think was possible was that Max had actually survived the assassination attempt and was now on the lookout for the assassin. If Arteta remotely believed that it might be the case, he would have taken more cautious measures or decided to flee the planet entirely. However, since he had completely disregarded the outcome that Max had been alerted, he was calm and not worried about his job. In his mind he would get Max surely in his second assassination attempt. However, he was oblivious to the reality that the hunter was about to become the prey. Chapter 324 Imposter Amongst Us. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Asiva hounded all immigration officers like she was a demoness, shaking them down with violent interrogations until she found one guard with one particular story to tell where he found himself asleep during work hours for some reason and was not sure if someone had slipped by his station during the time he was asleep. The man had allegedly reported this matter to his superior that day. However, the total number of people entering that day to the total number of documents signed tallied out, so the superior believed that there was no illegal entry to be worried about. Once Asiva got a whiff of the wrongdoing, her gears turned even faster as she quickly scoured through the records and found the exact one which was wrong, where the system contract was stamped by the guard's fingerprint instead of an actual sign by a real person. Max was right, there is a problem with immigration. One of my Paredes clan troops is an imposter, Asiva thought as she praised Max in her heart for thinking about sniffing the imposter out this way. Not only was the method precise, but it gave her a whole perspective on how to single out the assassin. With the date of entry and a list of people who entered alongside the man, Asiva now knew precisely how to find him and was sure that with a few more hours of work she would be able to single him out. Although she was not sure what she would do after singling him out, since she had a burning desire to settle the matter herself when Max had clearly instructed her not to do so, she knew she was not letting the individual responsible spend a single night more in the camp. Cautiously approaching his father's men, who she was sure were Paredes clan soldiers and loyal to the Lord, Asiva presented them with a list of people who immigrated alongside the imposter and asked the loyal soldiers to recognize any man that they personally knew and could trust. Asiva was not sure if the assassin was alone or the people entering with him were also connected to him in some way, so she took a cautious approach of only talking to the men she could trust. After establishing who exactly was a trusted soldier and could be vouched for, Asiva talked to them regarding who all immigrated with them and was able to get on the coattails of a man who called himself Mike and claimed to be a garrison commander in the previous Paredes army. A little search on Asiva's part, however, confirmed that he was no garrison commander and that nobody knew who he was. The imposter had hence been located. A while later, Asiva reported her findings to Max as Anna and Sebastian were present in the room as well. The group was completely horrified to hear about the assassination attempt, and emotions were flying high when they heard that the imposter had been singled out. "I'll crush him till he becomes minced meat. Don't underestimate this cowardly dwarf, if provoked he can clobber your bones till they are dust. Targeting my brother in such a despicable fashion makes the enemy unworthy of calling himself a man," Sebastian said as he made loud breathing noises through his nostrils. "We should attack him at once, kill him with 1,000 arrows inside his body. That should be the minimum punishment he gets," Anna said, adding fuel to fire. "Add another 1,000 daggers to it and maybe that will be enough," Asiva chimed in, ready to jump into action at Max's command. However, the man who was on the receiving end of the attack, the de facto leader of the group, Max, was unusually quiet as he listened to the group's banter. Max respected their emotions. He himself was the most enraged of them all, but he knew better than these guys that if the assassin was here alone and was capable of sneaking through his immigration gates and spiking his drink, he was definitely not a simple man and needed to be taken more seriously. "What is the enemy's tier?" Max asked Asiva. "He claims to be tier 3, Asiva replied as Max shook his head. "He claims to be Mike, but he's lying. We need to know his exact strength before we move against him. I have a strong feeling that the man is way stronger than tier 3. He is at least at the peak of tier 4 or maybe even in tier 5. My spell can't detect him at all. He has some excellent concealment device on him as well. Definitely not a simple man." Max used his brain and reined in his group against hasty action. Having been close to death yet again made Max realize just how precious his life was and how making stupidly rash decisions was not the best way to preserve it. As a student of Kremeth, he had never embraced the way of the coward with his full heart up till today. However, now he was 100% convinced that the coward's way was the right way. "This is ridiculous. The man tried to kill my brother. I'm angry as hell. I'm now supposed to wait till we find out his strength before attacking," Sebastian said, getting carried away by his emotion. "What is the turtle hermit rule number 6, Sebastian?" Max asked as he reminded Sebastian about Kremeth's teachings. "Turtle hermit rule number 6. An angry coward is a dead coward," Sebastian recited instantly as he recalled the words of his master. "Indeed, don't let the anger get to you. May the cowardice be with you," Max said. "May the cowardice be with you, amen," Sebastian replied, calming down completely as he was reminded of his status as a coward. "Anna, find out his power level. Asiva, send out a notice that the day after tomorrow there will be a massive banquet organized by me to appreciate all our soldiers," Max ordered as he played the long game on this one. He had a plan in mind, and wanted to proceed with caution. // bonus chapter for hitting the GT target. Good job everyone. // Chapter 325 2 can play this games. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Anna felt sweat running down her back when the intel report on Mike's photo came back. Upon Max's insistence to find the man's background before moving against him, Anna had paid an information organization for information of a man by providing his photo. In the end, the intel report came back within 4 hours and the contents of the report completely shocked her. Mike was actually a veteran assassin named Arteta, who was a tier 5 warrior and a member of the Kingsman clan branch of the Assassin's Guild. In his entire life the man had only failed 2 missions, and both those targets were way stronger than he was at the time. With a near impeccable record and a long illustrious career of assassinations of important figures and political opponents, Arteta was a feared existence amongst other clans. Thankfully, the group did not try to take down a tier 5 warrior without a solid plan, as if Max had not restrained them in time, she at least would surely be minced meat by now. Reporting her findings to Max, Anna fulfilled her job as Max chuckled deeply reading the report before burning it in his hands. "How do we take him down now? Should we encircle him and kill him with the combined might of the tier 4 soldiers present?" Anna asked, as she felt that the safest and surefire way to kill him was to outnumber him. "If I do that, I'll lose respect as the commander of this army. As a man, I need to take care of my own mess," Max said as he rejected Anna's idea. "What then? Anna asked as an evil smile formed on Max's lips as he looked at her and said, "Tit for tat." Anna did not quite get the meaning of that phrase since she was not from Earth, however, from the way Max said it she knew it ought to be something good. 2 days later, a massive buffet was organized by Max where the soldiers were treated to fresh barbecue meat and other delicacies rather than the usual meal. The official reason behind the banquet was for Max to show his appreciation for the troops, however, the real reason was to teach the assassin a lesson. The atmosphere was amiable and rowdy as battle-hardened men let loose of their disciplinary code for an evening and let themselves enjoy their evening off. Arteta, who was pretending to be one of the Paredes clan soldiers, also participated in the buffet, as he walked around with a concealed dagger, wondering if he could find an opportunity to kill Max this evening. He was pretending to enjoy the food too, as he was a bit surprised by the costly delicacies being served. Although it was not a royal gourmet, the food on the menu was definitely not cheap either, which is why Arteta was impressed that Max could afford it for so many people for no apparent reason. About 1 hour into the buffet, he finally spotted Max, walking in a pack alongside his friends as many soldiers flocked towards him to have a word with him as if he were a celebrity. Max seemed to be in a happy mood, talking, dancing and eating as he met with more and more people, as Arteta watched from the sidelines, studying his behavior and looking for an opportunity to single him out. "My friend, why is your plate empty?" Max said, staring towards Arteta as he broke free from the crowd and happily jogged towards the assassin. Arteta was taken aback by this sudden approach by the enemy, as his free hand shifted towards the concealed dagger as he cautiously monitored Max's approach. "Today's a celebration, my friend, your plate cannot be empty, come let's eat something together," Max said as his eyes crinkled from smiling under his mask, as Arteta assumed he was smiling under the thing. "It is an honor to meet you, Captain Raven," Arteta said as he followed Max to the meat stall and Max ordered a skewer for the two of them. Arteta stood beside Max quietly as he silently grabbed the side handle of his dagger, when Sebastian the dwarf and the elf suddenly appeared out of nowhere and covered Max's sides as they ordered 2 skewers for themselves as well. "I love the smell of burning meat, it reminds me of the progress we have made from being primitive and eating it raw like monsters," Sebastian said as he idly commented about stupid things to keep the conversation flowing and the atmosphere not awkward. "Who the fuck is this guy?" Anna asked him politely, as Arteta frowned and glared at the elven princess, momentarily shifting his gaze from the food being cooked. "He is. Who are you again?" Max said as he pretended to forget Arteta's name. "I'm Mike, sir, I think I should go, the lady minds my intrusion," Arteta said extremely professionally as Max wrapped an arm around his shoulder and started to chuckle. "He is Mike, and he has an empty plate in this buffet, so I've brought him to get something to eat. Be respectful to my friend Anna," Max said as he fake reprimanded Anna for her rudeness. Anna puffed her cheeks and pretended to ignore Mike as Arteta felt uncomfortable under the weight of Max's arms around his shoulder. If he wanted, he could plunge a dagger into Max's heart right this second, however, if he did so then it would be impossible for him to leave this planet alive with all these people around him. For now, he needed to have patience and look for a better opportunity. Soon, the meat skewers came and everyone took a bite as Anna instantly commented, "Oh spicy, my throat burns." Arteta also found the meat to be unusually spicy as he felt an uncomfortable burning sensation in his throat causing him to cough and choke. His natural instincts were screaming at him to vomit the piece of meat he ate out, however, before he could do so Anna made a personal comment about him that played against his ego. "Damn, look at the poor guy coughing at the spicy food, although I agree it's spicy and not for everyone to handle, he is definitely more sissy than I am," she said as she gave Arteta a condescending look. Arteta was instantly fuming at the comment, he was extremely angry at Anna to call him sissy as his male ego activated and forced him to take bite after bite of the meat skewer as he stared down Anna while doing so, forcing every inch of his body to swallow the ridiculous tasting meat. "Show him Mike. Ain't no woman beating a spicy eating contest," Sebastian said as he fanned the flames and stroked Arteta's ego in the best way he could. After eating about 60% of the meat skewer, Arteta fell to his knees sweating profusely as he requested for something to drink and preferred human blood. He did not understand why, but his brain had started to become dizzy as his stomach revolted violently, spasming and giving him unbearable gut wrenches. It was not until he coughed and found blood to come out of his mouth while coughing that he realized that he had been poisoned, and when he realized the fact that he had been despicably poisoned and looked up to see Max in the eye with fury, he was met with a cold gaze that sent shivers down his spine as Max offered him a glass of blood while saying, "I hope you enjoy your life's last beverage served cold." Arteta could not believe his ears. In this one moment the world around him began spinning and crashing, figuratively and literally, as he realized that Max knew that his drink had been spiked and he knew that it was him. Arteta could not figure out how a man could survive the poison that could even kill giants in seconds and live to plot revenge. However, in this one moment he realized the true terrifying enigma that Max was. His planning was perfect. He did not let his raging emotions get the best of him as he carefully plotted a plan to kill Arteta and deceived him oh so easily and masterfully that he did not suspect a thing until it was too late. A lot of people had started to gather around the man coughing blood from his mouth as they watched the cold expression on Max's face and tried to figure out what was going on. It was at this moment that Sebastian cleared his throat and declared, "Behold, a Tier 5 assassin pretending to be a Paredes clan soldier who tried to kill Captain Raven 2 days ago by spiking his drink, now poisoned at his feet. Such is karma." Everyone gasped and became alert. Nobody expected there to be an imposter amongst them this evening, as their admiration for Max grew tenfold. "You dirty bastard, how dare you target our captain?" One of the soldiers shouted. "Shame on you, spat," another one said as he spat on Arteta's head. Very quickly the rowdy crowd became agitated as Arteta became the object of their hatred and humiliation. "I'll kill you, you bastard," Arteta said as with his last bit of energy he clutched the concealed dagger in his robes and attempted to drive it straight into Max's gut. He knew his time was coming soon, however, since he was going to die anyway, he wanted to at least take Max down with him. Chapter 326 Mercy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Arteta wanted to kill Max with every fiber of his being. He had never felt hatred for any of his victims before today, however, seeing the despicable trick that Max played on him, Arteta could not help but feel immense hatred for Max, consumed by which he willed every last muscle in his body to help him plunge a dagger into Max's stomach. "Arg!" Arteta yelled as gurgling noises of blood could be heard mixed with his scream as he rushed towards Max with Tier 5 speed. There were at least 500 people in Max's close proximity, with Sebastian and Anna being only an arm's length away. However, none of them were able to respond in time to Arteta's quick attack. Splat. 600 Arteta's dagger pierced flesh. However, contrary to his desired target of piercing Max's abdomen, his dagger pierced the flesh between Max's 2 fingers instead as Max clutched the dagger tightly with his palm, which began bleeding profusely. Sebastian immediately tackled Arteta, however the man refused to let go of the dagger and kept pushing through with all his might trying to pierce Max. Unfortunately for him, however, he could neither push nor pull the dagger as it was lodged inside Max's bone. "Let him be," Max said in a calm tone as he asked Sebastian to let the man go. Although reluctant, Sebastian did as he was told and let Arteta go as he pulled out his sword and stood on standby, ready to slice the struggling assassin down if he so much as twitched another muscle. "Who sent you?" Max asked in a grim voice to Arteta. Now that his death was certain, Max wanted to know who hired him. Was it the Kingsman clan, the Caesar, or was it Regus Aurelius himself? Max did not rule out the possibility of a third party either. He needed to know who sent the assassin as he would need counterintelligence measures against that party. "You deaf?" the captain asked. "Who sent you?" Anna shouted in Arteta's ears as she kicked his shins. "I'm not telling you anything, what do I care, I'm a dead man anyways," Arteta said rebelliously as he was now visibly having problems sitting up straight as his sense of balance became severely affected by the poison. He could no longer discern up from down and right from left as he was not even sure if he was standing on flat earth or stuck to an inclined wall. "The poison will kill you slowly, at least 20 more pain-filled minutes. However, If you answer my questions, I can kill you in an instant, provide you with the mercy of death, Max said as he retrieved the Rave Slasher sword from his inventory. I'm asking you again, who sent you? If you refuse to answer this time, I will chop 4 of your fingers off, Max said calmly as he stroked the man's fingers. Arteta was visibly distressed. This was the exact intimidation technique he used as an assassin when he had to get information out of a client. It was a standard of the Assassin's Guild, however, for some reason the boy knew it. I'm not going to be shaken down by a kid like you, I'm saying nothing, I piss on your mother's grave boy, who do yo? Arteta said as he suddenly felt a stinging sensation in his palms. Arteta screamed as he violently coughed up blood covered in mucus alongside green liver bile. As he felt Max's sword chopping off his entire palm instead of 4 fingers. Arteta's mind went numb from the pain. If the loss of balance and direction was not enough of a headache, he now had to deal with mind-numbing pain as well, as at this moment his will finally started to break. He wanted to die rather than continue with this suffering. Max's soldiers were shocked to see his brutality, but part of the reason why Max chose to do this publicly was because he wished for the soldiers to see this side of him as well. He was good when he was good, however, when someone crossed him he could be terrifying. This was a lesson the troops needed to learn, as while they might love an amiable leader, they would only respect and blindly follow a strong one. The reason why Max did not chop off his fingers but rather cut off his whole hand was because this was how Johnny English had groomed him as a kid. As a veteran assassin on Earth, Johnny was a master in the techniques involving intimidation and information extraction, and according to him, if the intimidator did exactly as he promised, then the other party did not take him seriously. However, if he behaved erratically, then he succeeded in breaking the other side's will. For your left leg, who sent you? Max said calmly as his robes became covered in blood from top to bottom from the spurting blood from Arteta's ankle. I'll tell you everything, please just kill me afterwards. I'm not sure who hired me, however, they paid 500 million gold coins for your head and I chose to accept the mission because I'm loyal to the Kingsman clan and I was jealous of your success as a youngster. It could be anyone, us assassins are not directly in contact with clients, so I really don't know, Arteta said as he practically begged Max to end this torture session and write on his word. Max placed his right hand on Arteta's chest and used one of his strongest moves. Blood Explosion. The skill took 70 seconds to activate fully, but when it did, Arteta's body burst into small pieces like an astronaut in space without a spacesuit. A loud bang was heard for kilometers on Green Soil Planet as all soldiers were in shock to see the scene of the captain killing a Tier 5 opponent with a mere touch. It was a scene that was etched deep inside their memories. /////A/N. Bonus chapter for hitting the GT target. Good job everyone. The gap between us and number 10 reduces every day. Let's try catch him out before the 10th ////. Chapter 327 Myra's Problems. You are listening at novelfull.audio. System notification. You have killed the Tier 5 player, Michael Arteta, in a battle zone. Since both players belong to the same faction, EXP gained shall be reduced. Since the target was 2 tiers above you, EXP reward shall be multiplied. You have gained 1,200,000 EXP plus 1 Sawtooth Dagger plus 300,000 gold coins. System notification. You have leveled up. You have leveled up. Error, you have now reached the limit of your current tier, please increase your tier to continue increasing your level. System remark. You have reached the limit of the mortal rank swiftly, however, the journey of irreversible karma only starts from Tier 4. If you cross this barrier, you will draw countless unwanted eyes towards yourself and risk exposing your race. Max reached the peak of the Tier 3 realm after killing Arteta as he leveled up twice. He was now at level 299, the maximum possible level for a Tier 3 warrior, and if he wanted to level up anymore he would need to tier up first. If he wanted to seek instant power, maybe the best way to gain it would be to tier up instantly and become a Tier 4 warrior. However, Max did not intend to tier up for a long time. At least not until he reached stat maximization across all stat points. He had started to walk on the path of the perfect warrior and he was resolute to see it through to the end. He needed 3 months to stat maximize tier 0, about 6 months to maximize tier 1 and about 1 year to maximize tier 2, by this progression he would need 2 years of constant training to maximize tier 3, however, he knew that the principal of the University for Nourishment of Young Talents was a man who had been unable to reach stat maximization of tier 3 even after 20 years. With such a hectic life where he had no time whatsoever to train physically outside of the mirror world, because of the heavy time-intensive real-world duties he performed as a military commander, stat maximization looked like a far-fetched dream, but it was a junction that Max needed to cross sooner or later. Sighing deeply, Max excused himself from the banquet, leaving the bunch of awe-struck soldiers to their own devices. This was the first time that the soldiers had seen Max in action, and they felt like they now knew why he was called the Hound of the Frontlines. He was a terrifying warrior unlike any other they had ever seen. Bloodthirsty, rough, strong like a beast mixed with a man. Subconsciously their respect for Max increased several-fold as they felt more at ease following him into battle. Meanwhile Mira was listening to her mother and father argue in their dragon form as she quietly drank her potions after today's ambush attack. Having reached tier 4, Mira had learned how to transform into her human form and had taken the appearance of a 15.16-year-old teenager from Earth. She had distinct features as a human, golden blonde hair, jet black eyes and Brazilian bronze skin. Her breasts were ample for a 16-year-old, being a solid C-cup while she had a slender waist. She was a mixture between an innocent school flower and an alluristic and fiery woman, as while her face remained pure and innocent, her choice of dressing made her overall aura seductive. Wearing only thin robes to cover her nipples, Mira showed 90% of her upper body flesh with the full suppleness of her breasts on display. Dragons did not care much about the human form of other dragons as they were primarily attracted to the dragon forms for mating. However, even in that department Mira had a long line of suitors waiting to have an opportunity to court her. However, not one had been successful in soliciting a reply out of Mira yet. The only looks she gave men were that of condescence and superiority as her eyes asked them the question of whether or not they are worthy of being with someone like her. Today, her mother was blasting her father because someone had tried to kill her inside the palace grounds. An attempt had been made on her life as she was undergoing morning training, and it was only through the high-level defensive artifacts that Rhea had bestowed her daughter with that Mira managed to survive the assault until her father arrived at the scene and killed the 3 traitors with a swipe of his tail. It was a shocking incident, considering the 3 traitors who attacked Mira were all servants of the palace from the Green Dragon clan, as Rhea began explaining to her husband that his hold on the various clans had started to weaken. Rhea wanted permission to level the Green Dragon clan to the ground. She wanted their 7 generations to be exterminated until the very last dragon. They tried to end her bloodline, so Rhea had no qualms about ending their clan either. However, Dracun the Golden Dragon Monarch did not wish to move against the Green Dragon clan until there was irrefutable evidence that the 3 traitors were not working independently and had attacked on clan orders. Dracun was sensing the changes of tides as a lot of clans were growing hostile towards the ruling monarch. Amongst the younger batch of dragons, even the most excellent younglings had barely broken through to tier 2 while over 90% were still in tier 1. Although virtually all dragons were guaranteed to become tier 4 or stronger by the time they reached maturity at age 25, Myra's speed was 10 times faster than their kids, and this worried the other clans. The first time that the Black and the Golden Dragon clans, 2 of the strongest dragon clans, had their monarchs breed a baby, she was destined to sit on the throne. While Dracun himself was never able to unify all dragon clans under his crown, with his position as monarch being a democratic vote instead of an autocratic one, the fear amongst the dragon clans grew that if given enough time, his daughter would unify all dragon clans through power, and restore the dragon kingdom with herself as the queen. Being the prideful creatures that they were, the dragon clans were uneasy regarding letting Mira develop, as they wished to kill her even though it meant risking war, for in their mind if she did eventually become the queen, she would only prefer the Black and Golden clans while the rest of the clans would be treated like slaves. Dracun knew of these problems but was unable to solve it through his own strength. Currently every dragon clan had at least a tier 7 dragon as their patriarch. With the white, black, red and golden dragon clans having a tier 8 monarch as their leader. After marrying Rhea, Dracun gained the necessary votes to be named the elected leader. However, his reign was suffering from a lot of political pressures as the votes had started to sway away from him and towards the white dragon monarch. If this continued, he might lose his spot as the leader of dragons in the coming elections. What Dracun did not know however was that the tensions were being carefully nurtured by the Dark Faction and Lucifer. Chapter 328 Old Friend Meets Kremeth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On Turtle Shell Planet, Kremeth was relaxing peacefully on Turtle Shell Planet after the Dragon's Paradise dungeon had changed ownership from the Thunder Nation to the True Elite's Kingdom. Unlike Thor, who thought about making money from Dragon's Paradise during the time the dragons came there to lay eggs, the True Elite's Kingdom was much smarter. They sent their men to the place during the off-season, to harvest herbs, corpses, priceless materials, and chose to leave the place alone during the dragon mating season with no outsiders allowed inside during that time. It was a smart choice and one that made the True Elite's Kingdom a lot of money too. However, it disturbed Kremeth's peace and hence the turtle had decided to return to his old hideout planet at the edge of the universe. Kremeth found it peaceful on Turtle Shell Planet, or at least it was what he lied to himself about, since his true emotions were that of a bit of emptiness since his 3 disciples and 1 dragon mother guest had left. Having lived a hermit life for so long, Kremeth never felt more happy as when he had been running an odd household with the kids. Now that he was a hermit again, he felt something was missing from his life. He often wondered how the kids were doing, whether or not they remembered his teachings or not. However, he had no means of checking in on them since he had retired from the matters of the universe and had absolutely no connection to any modern organizations that could fetch him the information he wanted. It was yet another peaceful day on Turtle Shell Planet where Kremeth enjoyed the sunrise alongside a pot of herbal stew when his senses began to tingle as a familiar ghost from the past appeared on his planet. Kremeth instantly changed into his battle gear as his eyes turned serious, muscles that were lying dormant under his thin skin bulged out as within seconds he was completely ready for combat. "I come in peace, you old coward," the man who looked like he had not aged a single day in the last 5,000 years said as he threw his hands in the air signaling that he meant no harm. Kremeth however did not buy the peace act as he made a diamond shape with his palms and unleashed a tier 7 energy blast. Kaboom! The energy blast created a crater 1 kilometer deep into the crust of Turtle Shell Planet as it traveled at near light speed towards the target. Dispel. The opponent used a spell he had mastered to perfection as he dispelled the energy behind Kremeth's blast and absorbed it to replenish his own mana, however, did not counter attack as he maintained his non-threatening stance. "We can sign a contract if you don't trust me." The old-fashioned way, the mysterious man suggested as Kremeth thought for a while, before shrinking back to his normal size and bringing out a piece of mysterious paper from his inventory. Kremeth wrote the contract the old-fashioned way, with the Celestials as witness as he stamped it with his blood before tossing it to the intruder. Kremeth watched closely as the man stamped it with blood as well and Kremeth felt the contract tighten around his soul. Only then did the coward truly relax as he turned to enter his hut as he said, "Come in you shaman bastard." Angakok, the purple-eyed shaman god, smiled as he joined his old friend in his hut, having certain matters he wished to discuss. Meanwhile Max was happy to have amassed 350,000 troops total as reaching this number gave him the confidence he needed to start the first raid on one of the Kingsman clan-controlled planets. The Kingsman clan controlled a total of 5 planets across 2 solar systems. Initially they only controlled 1 solar system, however with their expansion over the Paradis clan planets they now controlled 2. The planet Max had in mind to liberate first was the previous Paradis clan capital which currently had about 5 million residents and 150,000 military troops. The planet had 1 tier 5 mage who acted as the keeper of the planet, however, except him the other security forces were manageable. After a lot of deliberation, Max had realized that the only way to truly conquer the Kingsman clan was the method he talked about with Anna, to choke their trade route out by conquering all 4 auxiliary planets first. It was going to be a tough road, with Max losing troops with each battle, however, it was the best way forward. After the assassination attempt, Max knew that the enemy had undoubtedly tried to plant or already had planted moles within his army, just like he had sent Severus over to theirs. While he was unsure of their identity, he knew the perfect method to make use of them as he decided to deceive the enemy with some trickery. Spreading fake news that he intended to invade Dombivli city once he amassed 350,000 troops, Max let the rumor spread amongst the troops and hoped that it reached the enemy as well. By spreading this rumor, Max intended for the Kingsman clan to recall some of their forces from the other planets to Dombivli city to help with the invasion and divert their attention from his true target. Hence, when the soldier count crossed the intended threshold, Max gave the soldiers their marching orders, as even till this point everyone believed that they were headed for Dombivli city. The only ones who knew the real destination were the Tier 4 captains, Max and his group. After preparing his forces for over 45 days, it was now time for the first assault against the enemy. /////A/N. Bonus chapter for hitting the PS target. Good job everyone. There will be multiple plot lines running in the story for a while, so I advise you to not miss any chapter, because things will get messy for you when the plot lines converge if you do /////. Chapter 329. No choice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Turtle Shell Planet, so you were alive after all. I thought you perished alongside others after the Great War, Kremeth said as he took a sip of the soup he was previously enjoying, not bothering to offer a bowl to Angakok. I was not truly alive, I was not truly dead either, because of Memphidos's curse. I felt like I was being forgotten, my memories from this universe erased, as bit by bit I fell into divine slumber. I only woke up recently because of a new follower, a boy, I assume a student of yours, Angakok said as he removed an old copper pipe from his inventory and began smoking some tobacco mixed with marijuana. Are you sure that you were put into slumber by your evil student and not because of your habits? Kremeth said, taking a jibe at Angakok's passion for drugs and illicit substances. Also, I have no students, I'm just an old coward, waiting for the end of my time, Kremeth added, as he wanted to test the other party's depth before revealing anything. Interesting. How many others in the universe have mastered the way of the wind? With the Vayu Astra still in your possession, I'm inclined to believe not many, Angakok said, smiling as he knew the cautious nature of the old turtle. I don't seem to recall, Kremeth said, feigning ignorance, however his disposition was much more serious now. Let me jolt your memory then, old friend. The boy is young, should be in early 20s, a primordial vampire, should have undergone dragonification, rings a bell. Angakok asked, his tone containing an icy edge as he revealed that he was done playing games. What do you want? Kremeth asked as he studied the other party seriously. He clearly knew a lot and Kremeth could no longer deny his involvement about being Max's teacher. He's my chosen, the only mortal who remembers my existence, he's the link that allows my clones to project themselves into the mortal world. This corporal body of mine in front of you, I've assimilated it with great troubles today, surely you haven't mistaken it for my real body, have you, old friend? Angakok said as Kremeth nodded. During the Great War, Angakok was one of the top gods, while he was a mortal rookie. The difference in power between him and Angakok was like heaven and earth, and today even after his long slumber his corporal projection was strong enough to give Kremeth a headache. Their friendship was a result of an unlikely event, as after Kremeth killed Odin, he gained universal infamy and became a wanted man. It was at that point that he traded secrets to a Tier 10 treasure to Angakok in return for temporary asylum and a favor to be named in future. The reason why Angakok was able to find Kremeth was also related to this old trade, as it was the shaman god who had helped him make Turtle Shell Planet his home. The boy is not suitable to be your chosen, he has his own troubles and will not be able to propagate your church, Kremeth said softly as he suggested to Angakok that he had made a mistake by naming him the chosen. No, that boy is unique, I'm sure you know it as well, but he is walking the path of fire, the path of the warrior and the path of the wind at the same time. I've never heard of any individual capable of advancing on 3 different paths at once. Setting aside the secrets and the difficulties of walking on these paths, the requirements are ridiculous and get harder and harder at each stage. The individuals in control of these paths are extremely limited. For him to learn the way of the wind from you, even though it's just the first phase, is a huge accomplishment. It means tutoring him through the further ranks won't be impossible. As long as he reaches the 4th stage before he becomes a god, I can guide him into becoming something more than a mere god. If he can master the path of the water and the path of soil alongside the 3 paths he is already walking on, he will be the first warrior since the Chaos Era to be eligible to walk the path of a celestial, Angekok's corporal projection said as its purple eyes flickered with intensity. Kremeth could feel his heart thumping wildly at the prospect. However, he also knew that the matter that Angekok discussed was not as easy as he made it to be. Aside from the fire god's path, which Max would master via the Agni, Astra, the other paths were not so easy to master. The stat maximization at Tier 3 would take him at least 2 years of intense training if not more, despite him being an inherent genius. The path of the perfect warrior was hard in and of itself to walk on, and to reach the zenith one needed to train themselves to the utmost limit day after day for years on end, and even if Max did manage to do so, for decades and eventually stand at the peak of Tier 5 with all of his stats maximized, he would still need to spend 2 or 3 decades mastering the way of the wind to level 4. By the time Max would be done with these 3 paths, he would already be into his 50s or 60s, midway through his life cycle, with 2 other paths yet to master from scratch. Even if Angekok managed to find the corresponding pathways, Max would be 120.170 years old before he mastered all 5 paths, assuming he could learn 5 of them, and it would take him over 1.5 centuries of persistent effort to do so. All of this just for the chance of becoming something more than just a god, a chance of someday stepping beyond the Tier 8 threshold set by nature and becoming more than a monarch. It's unreasonable. We would rob him of his dreams, ambitions, and life. Nobody can master 5 pathways in this day and age, Angekok. The universe has changed a lot since your slumber, Kremeth said, revealing his weakness in the form of his compassion for Max as he refused to help Angekok choose such a life for his disciple. Of course, I'm not unreasonable, old turtle. Even though you might not believe it, I no longer derive joy from making the lives of my followers miserable. I quite miss them now. I've mastered the concepts of the time seed in my slumber. I'm confident in creating a time-flow chamber where a single day outside will be akin to spending a decade inside. Although I cannot control the Tier 10 treasure completely, I can control the seed enough to harness its powers and build a structure that can channelize it. I've already started construction and should be able to complete it in 2 years' time. The only reason I'm here is to recruit you as the teacher of my chosen. Afterwards, I'm going after the keepers of the path of soil and the path of water as well. I wish for you to train him in the path of wind when the time comes. I hope you do it voluntarily since he is your boy too. However, if you refuse, then your corpse will be the one teaching him. He will do as I will him to do. I shall respect his dreams and ambitions, but it won't be an excuse to not make him do as I say. I'm no longer interested in expanding my believer base and having a religion. I've learned a lot in my slumber, and the things I want now are greater than you can imagine. Think about it, or be prepared for war, Angekok said with a smile as he vanished into thin air. Kremeth was silent for a while as he felt his hands tremble for the first time in a long time. Kremeth was the one who had given Angekok clues about how to obtain the time seed. However, he never expected the old god to have succeeded in his endeavor before falling into his slumber. Kremeth was now sure that it was one of the reasons, if not the reason, behind Angekok looking like he had not aged a single day despite him being much older to Kremeth in age. When Max chose the Blood Shaman class, Angekok thought that the only problems he would face was getting the relevant tier progression and spell aids since the class was long lost. Never in his wildest dreams did he imagine that his student would become Angekok's chosen, a new favorite pawn to his grand scheme. Kremeth did not have much choice as to accepting or rejecting Angakok's proposal, as while he could still afford to offend the Archangel Michael over an issue, he could not offend Angakok when he had the Tier 10 treasure, the Seed of Time, within his grasp. Chapter 330 Landing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Inside a rented transport ship, Max began to armor up as the group approached the previous Paredes clan capital planet. He was in a small transport ship alongside Asiva, Anna and Sebastian as he mentally prepared to descend into war. Max's ship was in the near back of the fleet, where the threat of getting shot down upon landing was the lowest, as despite him not personally approving of such strategy, it's what the other Tier 4 warriors arranged for him, as despite his own preferences he was now an important figure and his death could greatly demoralize the army. His presence was enough to keep the army motivated and hence he needed to be protected at all costs. As he suited up, he deliberated about his choice of weapon, but after a lot of consideration he decided to go for the staff rather than the sword, as the initial half of the battle would need him to use his AoE abilities rather than his PvP abilities. Of everyone, the most nervous was Asiva, as she was technically returning home for the first time since the night she fled from being chased by the assassins. It was an emotional moment for her, as she steeled her nerves and steadied her breathing. Landing in 10 minutes, Captain, the pilot of the ship informed as Max walked in front towards the cockpit as he observed his fleet rapidly entering a blue and brown planet with small patches of green littered all over. The fleet ships appeared as a streak of fire upon entering the planet's atmosphere, as immediately their presence triggered the air defenses of the planet as alarms blared all over. There were 4 major military bases that needed to be attacked to neutralize the local army, and the forces had already been bifurcated to deal with their specific assigned base, as Max's ship was headed for the base a few miles away from the central capital city. "We will enter the planet's atmosphere now, Captain," the pilot said, as immediately Max felt a change in air pressure as the ship began descending rapidly. The ship was definitely on fire, as Max could no longer see anything except flames once they began descent. However, using fire manipulation he created a small hole for himself amongst the flames covering the ship, to have clear vision ahead. The changing air pressure gave him an uncomfortable feeling under the ears, however, it was nothing unbearable as he brushed it off pretty soon. 1 minute later, the ship automatically landed safely on the planet's soil as the back door opened and the group rushed out onto the battlefield. Luckily, only 7 of his ships had been shot down from the sky due to the planet's air defense system, as the rest were able to land safely, giving them a net loss of only 7,000-ish troops before landing. The first thing Max noticed upon entering the battlefield was the noise, the sheer madness and death that was all around him. He could hear screams, clashing metal sounds and various attack spells being used at the same time as a lot of information flooded his mind. Chain heal, summon nether beasts, giant summoning. Max used 3 of his AoE moves at once, as he declared his presence on the battlefield in a grand fashion. The chain heal helped a lot of injured soldiers around him recover their health fast, while the 3 giants suddenly appearing after splitting the earth apart took everyone by surprise, as everyone on the battlefield took note of their presence. The rebel forces under Max began cheering wildly when they noticed that the giants were sweeping through enemy defenses such as barbed wire and dug in positions like they were dirt, creating an opening for them to charge. Anna quickly shot arrow after arrow, her deadly accuracy bringing down a soldier with every shot. As with a quiver full of arrows, she was the most efficient soldier on the battlefield, taking down an enemy life every 2.5 seconds. Asiva also wreaked havoc on the battlefront, throwing daggers precisely while taking down enemies with her nimble agility. To no end she was at her peak prowess today, just like she was back inside the academy during the tournament as she took down enemy soldier after soldier in a mad flurry that left Max in awe. Asiva was like a giant in herself, she carved a path into the enemy's heart alone, as nothing but death surrounded her on all 4 sides for 5 meters. Despite her small stature, she had the same effect as Max's giants had on the battlefield, with the only difference being that she did not take damage in the process while his giants were tanking hits after hits. Fireball, fireblast, Max finally merged with the front lines himself, shouting and commanding his troops as he organized them to penetrate enemy lines exactly as he wanted them to. So far the tide of the battle was completely in their favor, as Max alongside his 100,000 troops who came to tackle the capital military base seemingly outnumbered enemy forces present 3.1. However, just as everything seemed to be fine, a flaming arrow lodged itself in one of his giant's eyes before exploding in a powerful explosion as one of his 3 giants died in a single shot. "Burrow," Sebastian said as he removed his blood-stained sword from the heart of the enemy soldier he just killed and drew Max's attention at the enemy general. Burrow, the keeper of the planet and the Kingsman clan's Tier 5 general, had finally decided to show himself as Max knew that he needed to rally his Tier 4 warriors to tackle that man first. In this seemingly one-sided battle, the only individual capable of changing the tide of battle completely was Burrow, and Max did not intend to let that happen. "Go, open a path for me," Max commanded his nether beasts as Sebastian ran behind him shouting the names of the Tier 4 warriors that needed to follow them, as the group proceeded to face Burrow in battle.